Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to KB's Self Pub Empire. This is KB, and today we're talking about something I deal with every single day: how to handle too many things at once. If you're anything like me, you don't just have one thing going on. You've got your publishing business, maybe you've got a day job. You're probably thinking about courses or coaching or consulting or another brand entirely. You might have a podcast like this one on top of everything else. And if you're like most creative entrepreneurs I know, every time you get one plate spinning, your brain immediately says, hey, what if we added another one? Sound familiar? Yeah, me too. So today, I want to share the frameworks, tools, and mindset shifts that actually help when you're juggling multiple business interests at once, not the generic just prioritize better advice, real practical strategies backed by research that I use personally to keep multiple ventures moving forward without burning out. Let's get into it. Why creators end up juggling multiple ventures. First, let's just acknowledge something. If you're running multiple projects or businesses, you're not broken. You're not unfocused. You're actually following a very natural entrepreneurial pattern. Research from Daniels, Laron, and others published in the Journal of Business Venturing found that roughly 20% of entrepreneurs are what they call portfolio entrepreneurs, people who own or manage multiple businesses simultaneously. And that number is probably higher in the creator economy because the barrier to launching a new venture is so low. You can start a podcast for free. You can publish a book on KDP with zero upfront cost. You can launch a course, a newsletter, a consulting offer, all from your laptop. The problem isn't having multiple interests. The problem is managing the transitions between them. That's where most people lose their productivity, not in the doing, but in the switching. The real cost of context switching. This is the part where most productivity advice falls short. People tell you to just focus, but they don't explain what context switching actually costs you. The American Psychological Association published a landmark review of task switching research, and the findings are pretty sobering. Every time you switch from one complex task to another, say from editing your book manuscript to reviewing your podcast analytics to answering customer emails, your brain has to do two things. First, it has to disengage from the rules and mental models of the previous task. Then it has to load up the rules and context for the new task. The APA's research found that these switches can cost you up to 40% of your productive time throughout the day. Let me say that again, up to 40%. That's not a typo. If you're working an 8-hour day and constantly switching between projects, you might only be getting 5 hours of real focused output. Cal Newport, in his book Deep Work, calls this attention residue. When you switch tasks, part of your attention stays stuck on the previous task for an average of about 20 minutes. So if you're bouncing between 3 businesses throughout the day, you're never actually giving any of them your full cognitive power. This is why the first strategy is so important. Strategy 1, time blocking by venture. The single most effective thing I've done to manage multiple businesses is to stop trying to work on all of them every day. Instead, I assign dedicated blocks, sometimes full days, sometimes half days, to specific ventures. This isn't a new concept. Cal Newport advocates for it extensively. But here's how I think about it for multi-venture entrepreneurs specifically. Instead of having a to-do list with items from 5 different businesses all jumbled together, you assign each venture its own time block. Maybe Monday mornings are for your publishing business. Monday afternoons are for your consulting practice. Tuesday is your content creation day. Whatever the pattern, the key is that when you're in a block, you're only working on that one thing. The research supports this. A study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology found that people who batched similar tasks together were up to 25% more efficient than those who mixed task types throughout the day. That's because you eliminate the context switching penalty almost entirely. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Kevin, what about urgent things that come up? And yes, emergencies happen. That's why I also keep a small buffer block at the end of each day, usually 30 to 45 minutes, for cross-venture fires. But the key is making that the exception, not the rule. Strategy 2, the CEO day. Here's something I picked up that has been a game changer. Once a week, I have what I call my CEO day. This is not a day where I do the work of any individual business. It's a day where I step back and look at all of my ventures from a strategic level. On CEO Day, I review the metrics for each business. I check what's moving forward, what's stalled, and what needs my attention next. I make resource allocation decisions. Where should my time, money, and energy go this week? Michael Gerber talks about this in The E-Myth Revisited. the idea that you need to work on your business, not just in it. When you have multiple businesses, this becomes even more critical. Without a regular strategic review, you end up reactive. You work on whatever is screaming loudest, which is rarely the same as whatever is most important. The CEO day also gives you a natural checkpoint to ask a critical question. Is this venture still worth my time? We'll come back to that one. Strategy 3, systems over effort. Here's where a lot of multi-venture entrepreneurs get stuck. They try to do everything through sheer effort and willpower, but willpower is a finite resource. Research by Roy Baumeister, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, demonstrated that willpower depletes throughout the day, what he called ego depletion. The more decisions you make, the worse your subsequent decisions become. So instead of relying on willpower, you need systems. And by systems, I mean repeatable processes that run the same way every time, whether you're feeling motivated or not. For each of your ventures, you should have documented standard operating procedures for the tasks you do repeatedly. How do you publish a new podcast episode? What's your process for launching a book? How do you handle customer support inquiries? Write it down step by step. David Allen's Getting Things Done methodology is incredibly useful here. His core insight is that your brain is terrible at storing and organizing information. It's great at processing and creating, so get everything out of your head and into a trusted system. For multi-venture operators, I'd go further. You need a trusted system for each venture and a master system that sits above all of them. This could be as simple as a project management tool with separate workspaces for each business, or as straightforward as a notebook with tabs. The format doesn't matter as much as the habit. Every task, every idea, every commitment goes into the system, never lives rent-free in your head. Strategy 4, the seasons framework. Not every venture needs your full attention at all times. This was a major mindset shift for me. Think of your ventures like seasons. Some are in their growth season. They need heavy investment of time and energy. Some are in their maintenance season. They're running well and just need periodic check-ins. And some might be in their dormant season, parked intentionally while you focus elsewhere. The key word there is intentionally. There's a huge difference between neglecting a business because you're overwhelmed and deliberately putting it in maintenance mode because you've decided to prioritize something else right now. Greg McKeown talks about this in Essentialism. The disciplined pursuit of less isn't about doing fewer things forever. It's about doing the right things at the right time. For multi-venture entrepreneurs, that means being honest about which ventures deserve your growth energy right now and which ones can coast. This also helps psychologically. Instead of feeling guilty about not giving equal time to everything, you make a conscious decision about your priorities and you give yourself permission to be strategic about it. Strategy 5, leverage AI and automation. I know, and everyone's talking about AI these days, but for multi-venture solopreneurs, AI isn't just a nice to have. It's a multiplier that can genuinely make the difference between drowning and thriving. A 2023 study from the National Bureau of Economic Research, authored by Brynjolfsson, Lee, and Raymond, found that workers using AI assistants saw a 14% increase in productivity on average, with the biggest gains up to 34% going to less experienced or more overloaded workers. That's us. That's the person running 3 businesses who can't afford to hire a full team for each one. Here's how I think about AI in a multi-venture context. For each business, identify the tasks that are repetitive, time-consuming, but not deeply creative. Content repurposing, taking a podcast episode and turning it into blog posts, social media clips, and newsletter content. Customer email drafts, data analysis, research, first drafts of marketing copy. These are all tasks where AI can do 80% of the work in 20% of the time, and you just refine and approve. Beyond AI, look at automation tools. Zapier and Make can connect your tools so that when something happens in one system, it automatically triggers an action in another. A new podcast episode publishes, automatically create a social post draft. A customer fills out a form, automatically add them to your CRM and send a welcome sequence. Every automation you set up is like hiring a tiny employee who works 24/7 and never makes mistakes. Strategy 6, energy management over time management. Here's something that changed how I think about productivity entirely. We're all taught to manage our time, but when you're juggling multiple ventures, time management alone isn't enough. You need to manage your energy. Tony Schwartz and Jim Lair's research, published in their book The Power of Full Engagement, found that managing energy, not time, is the key to sustainable high performance. They studied elite performers across domains and found that the best performers all had one thing in common. They alternated between periods of intense focus and periods of deliberate recovery. What does this mean practically? It means scheduling your most cognitively demanding work. strategic planning, creative writing, complex problem solving during your peak energy hours. For most people, that's the first few hours of the day. Save your low energy tasks, admin, email, routine maintenance for your natural afternoon dip. It also means protecting your recovery. Sleep, exercise, time away from screens. These aren't luxuries when you're running multiple ventures. They're infrastructure. Skip them, and you'll feel productive for a few weeks before the quality of everything starts to slide. Strategy 7, the 1-3-5 rule. Last strategy, and this is one of my favorites for its simplicity. When you have multiple ventures competing for attention, your daily to-do list can quickly become overwhelming. 20, 30, 40 items across different businesses, it's paralyzing. The 1-3-5 rule cuts through that. Each day, you commit to accomplishing one big thing, 3 medium things, and 5 small things. That's it. 9 items total, and you've pre-categorized them by size and impact. The beauty of this for multi-venture operators is that your one big thing forces you to pick the single most impactful task across all your businesses. Not the most urgent, not the one that's been sitting on your list the longest, the one that will move the needle the most today. This connects back to the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule that Tim Ferriss popularized in the 4-hour workweek. In most businesses, roughly 20% of your activities drive 80% of your results. When you're juggling multiple ventures, finding that 20% in each one becomes absolutely critical. If you can identify the 2 or 3 activities that actually drive revenue and growth in each business, you can let go of a lot of the busy work that makes you feel productive but doesn't actually move anything forward. The question you need to ask regularly. I want to leave you with one more thing, and it might be the most important takeaway from this entire episode. When you're juggling multiple ventures, you need to regularly ask yourself, should I still be doing all of these? The sunk cost fallacy is real. Just because you invested time and money into something doesn't mean it deserves more of your time and money going forward. Peter Drucker, widely considered the father of modern management, famously said, "There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all." Every quarter, look at each of your ventures honestly. Is it growing? Is it profitable or on a clear path to profitability? Does it energize you or drain you? Does it serve your long-term vision? If a venture isn't checking at least 2 of those boxes, it might be time to sunset it, sell it, or hand it off. Saying no to a venture, even one you built, isn't failure. It's strategic. It frees up time, energy, and mental bandwidth for the things that are actually working, bringing it all together. So let me recap the playbook. When you're handling too many things at once, and if you're a creative entrepreneur, you probably always will be, here are the 7 strategies that actually work. 1, time block by venture. Stop mixing tasks from different businesses throughout the day. Give each one dedicated focus time. 2, implement a CEO day. Step back weekly to review all your ventures strategically. 3, build systems over effort. Document your processes, use trusted task systems, and get everything out of your head. 4, use the seasons framework. Not every venture needs full attention at all times. Be intentional about what's in growth mode versus maintenance mode. 5, leverage AI and automation. They're force multipliers for solopreneurs managing multiple businesses. 6, manage your energy, not just your time. Schedule demanding work during peak hours and protect your recovery. And 7, use the 1-3-5 rule. 1 big thing, 3 medium things, 5 small things. Every day, it forces you to prioritize across all your ventures. Look, running multiple ventures isn't for everyone, but if you're wired for it, if you can't help but see opportunities and want to build things, these frameworks will help you do it sustainably. Not perfectly, not without stress, but without losing your mind. That's what we do here at Self Pub Empire. We figure out the systems and strategies that let creative entrepreneurs build real businesses, even when those businesses multiply. I hope this helps you go from posts to profits. See you in the next one.